What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Afros in the Diaspora. I'm your host, Sarah, and today we have Nyasha all the way from Zimbabwe, living and thriving here in Canada. Nyasha, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Yes, we're happy to have you too. Nyasha is an incredible dancer. She's a first of all, I can't even really define all the things you do because you see her in some movies as a historian. She has like the knowledge when it comes to dance and movement.
Wow.
She also is doing incredibly well at work, and yeah, so shout out to you. Thank you for coming on here today.
Of
Spend
course.
time
Thank
with
you so
with
much for
us.
having me. Thank you.
Yes. Awesome. All right. As you know, right, we're about to hop right into the trivia.
hmm
Are you ready?
You know what? I don't know if I can wait to be ready. All I can say is let's go.
Okay.
Life just gets you. It doesn't wait. So, yeah,
All
ready
right.
or
All
not,
right.
let's go.
Here I come. All right. Ready or not, here I come.
Yeah.
All right. So Nyasha, you're from Zimbabwe, right? So we're gonna ask you questions about Zimbabwe. I'll start with an easy one, okay?
Okay.
What currency is used in Zimbabwe?
Well, currently, I think it's called the Zig. That's the new one right now. I think they kind of like toggle between like mostly it's been the United States dollar, but now they call it the ZIG. I don't remember what the abbreviation stands for, but it's a ZIG. Last time I checked when I was there. Um,
I don't know what the zig is, but I know about the Zimbabwean dollars. Is that what the zig is? Is that the zig?
would call it that. I think it's
Yeah.
like gold, it's like gold index or something to do with gold. It's just
Oh,
recently. I
really?
think they recently implemented it in
Oh,
like very recent because we're in May, right? So like yeah,
yeah.
April 2024. I think that's when it kind of took off.
Oh. Oh,
Yeah.
well, I learned something just now, so that
Yeah,
is fantastic. Yes,
yeah.
that's what we love. Okay, awesome. All right. Describe the national flag of Zimbabwe for us.
Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a on the left side there's a white triangle with a
Mm-hmm.
statue or drawing of the Zimbabwe bird, which is a bachelor eagle. And
Okay.
then there are I know my stuff. Period.
Okay.
And then
Yes.
there's stripes of different colors, a lot of them Pan-African, which are red, green, red, green. Oh my God. Why am I blanking? White, black. Yes,
Yes. All
I
those
believe
colors
that's
are
it.
there,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
there's one more color left.
What did I say? I said red, okay, red,
You
green.
said red, green, white, black, but there's one more color you're missing.
Why am I blanking? My God. Do I have
It's
flag?
yellow.
Yellow, of course.
Yellow or gold.
Representing the minerals. Yes, of course.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. But fantastically done. What year was that design implemented to be the flag of Zimbabwe?
Oh man, I do not know, but I would say probably around like independence, around like 1980, 1978.
Yes.
Oh, was it?
It's
Oh,
1980. Yep.
look at that.
Yes.
Look at that.
Okay. Look at
Yeah.
you. Back to back. I love it.
I do know some things contrary to popular
I
belief.
I mean, come on now. We know you are a brilliant human being. Please stop it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Another question.
hmm
What is the name of this staple food of Zimbabwe, as well as other countries in the region, that is made from white maize? It
Okay.
rese-
So
it,
yeah,
re- it resembles a porridge.
okay. Well, in my language in Shona, they call it sadza. In Ndebele, they call it ischwala. I know in South Africa they
Okay,
call it
give us the
so
different languages. Yes, yes, yes.
listen, we know things. Yeah, so sadza is chwala, like different languages call
Yes.
it different, but it's, yeah, pop.
Yes. I'm Oh my gosh, I love this. This is so awesome. Yes, it is Sadza.
Yeah.
Ah, wonderful. I want to throw you off though, so I'm gonna try to
Mm.
find a harder one.
Okay.
But Zimbabwe, what did Zimbabwe used to be called before it was renamed Zimbabwe?
I believe it was called Rhodesia or Southern Rhodesia because I think Zambia was Northern Rhodesia, but Rhodesia.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Correct. Ding ding ding.
Is
Ooh, okay, okay. I love this. All right, another question for you.
yeah.
What is the name of the current president of Zimbabwe?
His name is Emerson Mnangagwa.
Please, can somebody spray Nyasha money?
And
Can someone spray her money because
you could
you,
PayPal me, e-transfer
yes,
me. There's no
anything.
barrier.
Just please send her money because
Yeah.
so far you have like aced all the questions. As in, okay, 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 okay. Speaking of presidents, what's the
Yeah.
name of the previous president of Zimbabwe?
His name is Robert Gabriel Mugabe. He was the first prime minister and was the first president of Zimbabwe until I think his ousting in a couple years ago. I don't remember the year, but I believe that was the previous president, and the
And that
prior
is
only president. His name was Robert Mugabe.
Robert Mugabe. Yes, that is correct. And he got out in 2017, I believe.
Yeah,
Is that
it
was
was around
right?
like 2018. That around that time, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Mugabe resigned after a coup in 2017, and yes, there was, I believe, there was an election, and the new president got in.
Hmm.
Yes, correct, correct, correct. Amazing. Okay, let's see. I'm gonna read out a few quotes
Okay.
from, and I want you to tell me the one that is not from Robert Mugabe.
Okay.
Okay, I'll read out three because some of these are long, so please bear with me. Okay. All right. I have died many times. That's where I have beaten Christ. Christ died just once and resurrected once. That is the first saying.
Okay.
Number two, Zimbabwe is for Zimbabweans, so are its resources.
Hmm.
And then number three, only God who appointed me will remove me.
Hmm. You know what? I'm gonna go with my gut, and I'm gonna go with two because I know that he had a lot of like indigenization policies. So I
Hmm.
think this whole Zimbabwe for Zimbabweans for indigenous Zimbabweans thing, I think that sounds more like his speed.
Hmm.
Um, so I'm gonna go with number two.
Okay, that was a trick question. He said all of them.
Oh, well, shoot,
I had
surprise.
to throw you off somehow. Come on, man.
Well, you know what? You got me. You got me. And I would
But
believe all three of them actually. If I had to choose one, I'd go with the second one. But
yeah,
yeah, no, I mean, all three check out, quite frankly.
yeah.
So yeah,
The one about Christ knocked me out when I saw it. I was laughing so hard. It's
it's
like
just,
he has
it's
a one up
funny.
on Christ.
He really did have a way with words, a certain kind of poetry, if you will. It was, yeah, it was, yeah, it was what it was.
He
So
was
I mean, I
very
would have put it past him.
he could have been a poet for real.
I believe so. I believe so. If he wasn't already,
If he wasn't already.
yeah, yeah.
Oh my days. Okay. How long did Mugabe reign as leader of Zimbabwe?
I believe since its independence until his ousting, until like the coup, I believe.
Yeah, so how many years?
You're gonna make me count? Oh God. What's 1988
Yeah.
till 20, is that 37 years?
37. Yeah.
Yeah.
We know you do with math on a day to
Ooh.
day, all right? So, yes.
Listen, it's past 5 o'clock, so I think my brain is
You clocked
clocked.
out? You've clocked out for the math for today? Okay. How long does a presidential term last in Zimbabwe?
I believe it's the usual like 4 years, I think.
It is 5 years in
It's five.
Zimbabwe.
Wow, yikes.
Yeah. I was
Wow,
actually
wow.
very surprised about that because it's four in Nigeria and literally any other country I know.
Oh, okay. I suppose.
Yeah.
Is it
Yeah.
five?
It
Oh,
is
okay.
five. Yeah. It is five.
Hmm.
Um,
The more you know.
you know what's I'm gonna let's a round of applause for Nyasha. Like
Thank you.
clap, clap, clappity, clap, clap. You did your thing. This was awesome. We're gonna move on to some riddles now. I have some corny riddles for you.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. All
Hit
right.
me. Hit me.
Hit you. Okay, okay. Um These are very corny.
I'm
So,
ready. I'm ready.
all right. What gets wet while drying? Think about, don't even think about anything too serious. Like, think about the most, like, what gets dry? Sorry, what gets wet while drying?
Water? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
Water.
I'm blanking hard.
A towel.
I was gonna say that, but then in my head I was like that whole like is water wet thing got into my head, and then I was like, ah,
Oh no! See, I said the most like
I was
random.
that
Don't
was
even.
it was either water or towel. So
Yeah, yeah. Towel.
okay, okay, okay.
Okay. What question can you never say yes to? Can you never
Um,
answer? Actually,
oh, okay. So if you had said, "Can I not say yes?" is can I have $1 million? And I would say never because I don't have it. But could I never say
like not just you, just like people in
like
the
a
world.
rhetorical question?
No, no, it's not. It's not rhetorical, but it's just a way to see if a person is doing the thing. Like, are you blank? If the person says yes or no, then they're not. They're not doing the thing. So, what is the blank? What is the thing?
What? Oh. Well, my answer was a rhetorical question because rhetorical questions don't need answers. But
Don't need answers. Yeah.
are you blind?
Sleep.
Oh, are you
What?
asleep?
Did
Oh,
you say
okay.
are you blind?
No, I was gonna say
What'd you say?
I was gonna reference like an East Coast, like, are you dumb? Like Toronto, like
Oh
just
no.
just 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 another like you know question
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
rhetorical.
It's all good.
Are you
All
asleep?
right.
That's true. Yeah,
Yeah, because if you say, you know how kids are like, "Are you asleep?" and then they say yes, then you're
they're like,
like, you're not asleep.
and then you're like,
Um,
blink twice if you're sleeping. Blink twice.
and they're
Yeah,
like, yeah.
yeah.
All right. What kind of band never plays music?
Yeah, I have no clue.
Rubber band.
Wow, did you make these up?
I found these online.
You know what? I appreciate you doing your research on these. They're really hard. So thank you. I never would have gotten that. I never would have gotten that. I fear.
Me neither. Okay, let me
Yeah,
ask you two last
yeah,
ones.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. When is a door no longer a door?
Oh God, when it's not on the hinges, I guess. I don't know.
That's kind of close, actually.
When it doesn't have a handle. When it I don't know. I don't know. I don't
When
know.
it's a jar.
You know what? You know what? I'm starting to think you made this category up because you wanted me to get some questions wrong because you knew I'd get all the other actual questions right. So you know what? Yeah. Okay. You got me.
I usually ask this as
I know. Well,
well.
you got me.
It's so silly.
It really, you know what? Yeah. A jar.
A
Wow.
jar.
Is there a site that you go to or like, okay,
There's just random websites that have riddles.
that's hilarious. Oh
Okay,
God.
the final question.
Okay.
The final question. Before Mount Everest was discovered, what
Mhm.
was the highest mountain in the world?
Wait, is this a riddle or an actual question?
I mean, it could be like there's an actual answer to it to
Oh, okay. Oh, I don't know.
before it was, yeah, before it was
Before,
discovered.
I don't know. What are the other ones? Kilimanjaro? Is it Mount Fuji? I don't know. Mount,
No,
oh, I don't know.
it okay. It was Mount Everest. It just wasn't discovered.
You know what? You know what? You know what? You know what?
That's the
Okay.
end. That's the
Okay.
last
Okay. All right. That
one.
is funny. I can't imagine like people who like whoever manages that site just like cracking up, just listing these down and being like, I'm really doing this. I love that.
Yeah, I
I love
wonder
that.
like where people's minds go. Like on another episode, I think the last one, I I asked the last one I released with Idris. I asked him a question and I just started laughing at the answer and
Oh
that gave it away
God.
because it was
Oh,
so silly. Like what?
Oh
Anyway,
God,
anyway.
that's
Um,
hilarious. No, that's great. I love it. And
yeah.
I mean, if anyone ever asks me this again, I think I will know the answers.
Now you know it. Now you know it. Just think of the most unserious answer,
Yeah.
and then you're
Hmm.
closer than you
Yeah.
think. But this has been awesome. Thank you for engaging with me with
Of
these
course.
icebreakers. Awesome. All right, Nyasha, we are talking today about your story of how you moved here. I think you have an absolutely beautiful story of how you were able to move to Canada. Would you mind just starting like from the beginning of that journey for you? Like you finished senior secondary school, and you know what was your mindset? What were you thinking at that time? What did you feel like your next steps were?
For sure. Yeah. So, as Sarah said, like I'm from Zimbabwe. I grew up in a small mining town right in the middle of Zimbabwe called Kwekwe. But I went to a school to high school in another city. I went to another to high school in another city called Bulawayo, which was like in another province. But basically I graduated and like ever since like I was like probably like 15, which is like right before I started writing like my what we call like ordinary levels or O levels. If for my people who are familiar with like the Cambridge GCSE system, the British system. Yeah, I just kind of was like looking, like you start thinking about what you want to do after school, where you want to go, what you want to study, blah, 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 because after you write your O levels, you have to decide, you have to boil down your subjects to like four or five for like advanced levels. Yeah, I was just thinking about what to study. Like when I was in school, I was like super good at like math and stuff like that. So I knew it was gonna be something around that. But I also really wanted to like leave the country because like at around that time when I was like 15, 16, it was like 2008 Zimbabwe. And everyone who knows what I mean when I say 2008 Zimbabwe, that was just, I mean, all over the world economically it was not a great time. So um I think for me I was just like thinking about like going to study somewhere else and hopefully immigrate there. And for me like naively, because I was like a teenager and like 15. I was like, I want to go to Canada. Like, Canada is so unproblematic. Yikes. Was I right? You have to come here to find out. But
Yes,
I was
yeah.
like, in global news, in terms of just like whoever is always like harping on like the headlines, like Canada is nowhere to be found like usually. So I was like, you know what? No news is good news. Let me look for Canadian universities,
Hmm.
etc., etc. But anyway, at that point in time, like it was 2008, like my mom had like, excuse me, had gotten laid off. My mom was like a widowed, like single mother. Like my dad had passed away like when I was 11. So it was really kind of like very bleak, but at least all I had was like at least I knew how to like study and like stuff like that. So academics were fortunately on my side. I was able to get a scholarship, which saw me through the rest of my education, and helped out my mom a lot. And yeah, while I was like studying and doing school, like I was still doing my research on like universities and like scholarships for international students and stuff like that. So yeah, I finished school in 2011, and then like I was just kind of like applying. I was like handling the whole like application process myself. I was doing my research by myself, contacting universities, like asking questions about like funding and the program that I wanted to study, which was actuarial science. And then I ended up getting into the University of Calgary and getting like two scholarships. Yeah, which was like I was like super
Okay.
super
Brains.
grateful, super thankful,
That's
super
awesome.
grateful. And yeah, like I had to, after that, after I got my admission, that's when I had to start the upward battle. If anyone lives in any African country, you know how our bureaucratic governments are when it comes to any kind of like immigration document or any
Hmm.
other government document. So you
Yeah.
know how that goes. So then I had to like collect all this information that I had to prove that like I was able to live there, and like a lot of my family came through to like support me to like be able to get this. And like a lot of my family like housed me. I was like bouncing, I was in Harare, and like the first like 8 months trying to like hustle like my documentation, and then as well I was like volunteering for another like company just to kind of like find something to do while I was there.
So just for a
um
moment,
yeah,
how old were you at this point?
I was 18. I was
Okay.
18. Yeah, so I was 18. Yeah, so like the 8 months between, like, because our academic year goes from like January to December, but there's like breaks in between. It's not like here where
Hmm.
there's like a 4 month, break in the middle of the year. But so I graduated or I finished school like 2011 December, and like January 2012 onwards, like I moved to Harare and I was like staying with like family, just trying to like figure out what the heck I was doing and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Yeah, so like I finally got my visa, I think like 2 weeks before like orientation, which was like because like at that point in time, like I'd resolved myself to be like, you know what, I gave it my best, I gave it my all, and I was like literally about to leave. My uncle calls me and he's like, you got the visa, and I was like literally I was like it was like one of those like at the final hour, like everything like finally came through. And it was just like this whirlwind rush of trying to get everything ready. Like at that point in time, like I was not even prepared at all to like leave or whatever, so I had to go home and like we had to like start preparing like really quickly. And also I had like plane ticket, which was also like family was helping me. And I remember like as we were kind of gathering everything, my mom and I, and my mom was like at this point still like not working, still not employed. And then like I was like, I mean, I've got the visa, I've got the scholarship, I've got the admission, you gotta let me go. And she did, and I admire her faith in me for letting this like 18, I think I just at that point in time was like I just turned 19, leave the country and start a life in another country. And I think like my whole family just kind of like pulled it, like, you know what I mean? Like pulled strings, did this, did that to kind of like, get me to where I needed to go. My uncle in South Africa, he was able to like host me while I was like getting all my stuff together right before I left. But my favorite memory of me leaving Zimbabwe for the first time, like this is my first time going on a plane, like my first time leaving like the continent. And it was by myself. Like, thankfully, I was so naive that like the excitement carried me through the fear. When I
Mm.
think about it now, I was like, oh my God, if I had a kid who was like 18, I would never
Never.
in this world, no thanks. But I mean, I feel like at that point in time, I had a pretty good head on my shoulders. So I think my mom was like, okay, like I feel like you have proven to me that you can handle yourself.
Hmm.
But yeah, I remember my favorite memory when we were walking from my house to like take a bus because I took a bus from Zimbabwe to South Africa to like I think it was like Johannesburg. And my mom was like carrying my suitcase on her head, and we were walking to like the bus stop, and I was like, "This is what it's about, folks. This is what it's all about." And I appreciate my family so 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 much for, quite honestly, like that whole thing of like it takes a village. It really really does. And I really would be nowhere without them. Like to this day, like if it wasn't for people like really putting their weight behind me, like from like the organizations that funded me when I was in high school to all the scholarships that I got. And like after I left, like I was on my own. My mom was like, "Listen, you better get a job."
Yeah.
So literally, I landed like 2 weeks later. I was working, so I was like, grinding because I wanted it so badly. But thankfully, my family was able to like, support me in little ways that they could. Especially my mom, who thankfully, like right after I started like university, she also started working again. She was able to find a job, so that kind of helped. But it wasn't like, I mean, international student fees are not cute.
Yeah. No.
It was still tough, like with the
Yeah.
scholarships and her now working, like it was
Hmm.
not, it was still a bit tricky. And also I had to like pay for my own stuff, buy textbooks. So it was just a lot. But I mean, I made it. I made it. I made it. I'm really thankful for my family because honestly, like I would not, I would never, I never would have made it if it wasn't for them. So
Yeah.
whenever I'm like succeeding or like, doing something great in life, I always feel like I carry them on my back and like everywhere
Hmm.
I am, they are. So
Yeah.
I'm really thankful and grateful that for their love and support. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I have like there's so many points in there. First of all, the brains. Hi. Hello.
I'm
you
grateful,
got
Dad. I'm
two
just
you
thankful.
got
I'm
two
thankful.
scholarships. Like that is
Yeah.
not easy. Like that is by like that is well, yeah, you did that. Okay? First
I
of all,
tried. I tried.
yeah, yeah.
Thank
And
you.
then, like shout out to family. And that's that thing of support, right? That
Mhm.
like, the uncle here, the, neighbor here, the and like that support that you cannot buy in the market. Like it's just literally a gift and a blessing, and that, sense of
Mhm.
community. And ooh, so much I want to ask about.
Yeah.
I always ask this, and I'll ask it again and again
Yeah.
and again. So, what were like a couple of cultural shocks that you met, and you're like, whoa?
Oh man, I think I don't know, obviously like the racism that was like I had never been like racially othered before, especially coming from
Hmm.
a place where like I was like ethnic majority, racial majority.
Hmm.
Also, I was
Hmm.
living in a place to which I was indigenous. Like
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I took so much of like the things that built up my identity for
Mm-hmm.
granted. So I think
Right.
it's just like this experience of just like feeling as though I wasn't like normal, or like I wasn't in the middle of like the bell curve.
Right.
It was really, it was a little bit jarring because I was like, initially I was like, oh, it's just curiosity, and then like it took me like a couple years, but I was like, oh, I think this person doesn't want to learn anything about me. They just want to like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So I
Can
think,
you give an example of what that was? Because I feel
oh,
like sometimes when we say racism, people are like, "What? But what is that though?" You know,
I mean, Canadian racism has its own
it's a
flavor.
brand. It's a
You know what I
brand, a
mean?
label.
It's got
Yeah.
its own branding. But I think
Yeah.
most of it was just kind of like little microaggressions, with just like assumptions about, because like I'm Zimbabwean, obviously I'm African. Like I think a lot of people would just be like, "Oh, you're from Zimbabwe? Like I went to Uganda once in 2013," and I'm like, I love that so much. I don't know how that's connected, but I think it's just all these kinds of like, I felt like my skin and where I was from like talked for me before I even said anything. So a lot of people would assume
Hmm.
things about me, or weren't actually curious, but they were just trying to confirm something, that like confirm a suspicion or confirm like a
Right.
stereotype, right? So they weren't
Right.
actually very open minded and like being curious about like what my actual lived personal experience was. They had
Hmm.
an idea in their head of what like blackness or Africanness or Zimbabweanness meant, and they were just
Hmm.
trying to ask me to lead me to confirm that, which was
Yeah.
not obviously, I mean, that's not my truth. So
Yeah.
it was just really jarring. I'd imagine, like, even like, I mean, like I said, like when I moved here I was like super young, so initially I was just like, oh my god, everyone's so nice, everyone's so helpful, ah, I love it here. And then like I think the more I lived here and the more I kind of like also like socialize with like other people. Another one that I would say was like a cultural shock is like the like cultural and like ethnic diversity here was like, it was, I wouldn't say it was like a rough adjustment, but it was one of the more positive ones, because like
Yeah.
um yeah, like it was just really great to kind of like have this experience with other people who might not necessarily have been black, but like came from cultures
Hmm.
where like they were Asian or like Hispanic or like from South America or like Caribbean or whatever, but like we had like so many similarities in our culture, and I was like, well, golly, like look at us, we made it,
Yeah.
immigrants, and I just love that. Oh
Yes.
God, I
Yes.
love linking with other immigrants and just kind of like getting it without having to explain it.
Explain.
That's
Yeah.
my favorite thing. That was one of my
Yeah.
favorite things, where I was like pleasantly surprised, because I was thinking that I would have that kind of camaraderie with like Africans, but like I was just so pleasantly surprised to share like an overall, you know what I mean, like shared
Yeah.
experience with other immigrants from like other cultures where we had a lot of similarities, I think.
Yeah.
Um yeah, those two things, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that was also a shock for me seeing that wait, there are Indians here and Chinese
Mhm.
people and like Middle Eastern, like oh my gosh, I've never seen an Ethiopian before. Hi,
Literally, literally. And I love Canada for that. That's one of the
like
things that I love
yeah.
Canada for, because like you go to other places and like some
Hmm.
people will literally be like, I have never met anyone from Vietnam before. And I was like, wow, that sucks. So
Yeah.
sorry.
So
Oh,
sorry.
I don't know what that's
Yes.
like. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, or
Yeah.
whatever. Like I love that. I love that. Because like it's
Yes.
a very unique kind of country that way. There's not a lot of places where we have this kind of like cultural and ethnic mosaic. So I think that was a pleasant surprise.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, 100%. So how would you say, because from your story, community is extremely important to you,
Hmm.
right? It's important to us all. I mean, like we all, it's an incredible like bedrock that gives us comfort. Like
Hmm.
you've talked about the value of that, even though it was like your immediate community, extended family, and
Yeah.
how would you say that you are giving back
To my
to
community.
them, to your community, for the support, and like I mean,
Hmm.
I feel like me personally, I don't know how to answer that question because I'm like, I feel like I'm never doing enough.
I mean,
Like I would
that's
I would have
every
I would
single
have
person. That's every single
yeah,
immigrant who kind of came here for like a better life and has
yeah,
the privilege to find work that actually pays you.
yeah.
So I would answer that by saying that I like, in any way that like I can economically help. Like I think I just recently came back from a trip home in
Ooh,
in April. It was so beautiful to see my family, and also because I was celebrating my siblings' graduation, and they're
Yes.
all that ties into like that whole like how I was like supporting my family. Like I think even when I was like here, like working, especially after I finished school, like I knew for sure because like my mom was like the only like supporting parent for my family, like for my siblings, for all of us. Like I think definitely like that was one of the biggest ways in which I kind of like was able to chip in the same way that like other people had like chipped in for me. I think it was just
Yeah.
kind of like this unspoken, and I know my mom would like never ask until she was like, listen, we gotta
Yeah.
work
We're at
something
that
out.
point. Yeah,
So I
yeah, yeah,
think
yeah,
it was
yeah.
just kind of like that, I'll do the best that I can. And like
Hmm.
everyone who sends money home or like helps at home never feels like it's enough, because
Yes.
the disparity between like the quality of life here and the way life is here versus there, like,
Hmm.
like to someone like a coffee, like how much a coffee costs could be like, it's nothing. Like I spent $5 a
Hmm.
day or whatever. Whereas like that's someone's like entire like daily earnings. So I think sometimes like
Hmm.
the like gravity of like economic power is so like the weight of it is so overwhelming sometimes, where you're like, oh my god, like is there something, can I do more, I always feel like I could do more. But I think in that sense, that's kind of like with my immediate family, that's something that I felt like I was a part of, in assisting like in their journey and stuff, like. And for me, like, I don't know, I think to me it's like a sunk cost. Like I don't even think about it. Like it's just one of those things. I feel like when you're raised in a way that's just like people help you because you're their family, like there's no like, okay, so your total is twelve
Yeah.
thousand six hundred
Yeah.
and ninety eight dollars and 62 cents. Like
Yeah.
no one
Right.
thinks like that, because like we
Yeah.
kind of like, I think in a lot of like cultures across the world, like in the global south, there's this kind of like social economy of just like, listen, like we do things for each other because this life is hard. And like
Yeah.
you really could be in, you're not, whatever you have right now you're not going to have forever, and we understand that. Like life is just wild. Like you think like you have everything and you're economically and financially secure, but like a pandemic, like an economic collapse or whatever,
Hmm. Yeah.
could upset everything and like disturb the balance of like what you like. We kind of function in the sense of like not, I don't know. It's almost kind of like always being in crisis. So like crisis is not an event, but it's kind of like a lifestyle where you're
Yep.
always like on high
It's
alert, expecting
continuous.
the
Yeah.
worst to happen. So you're always just
Yeah.
like, whatever I got is not mine. So I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm everything I have is borrowed, and like I have to be generous with
Right.
everything because I know everyone will, we have to come together because we're all we got, because everything is so
Yes.
transient. So
Yes. Yes.
yeah, 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 yeah. I hope that answers
Yeah.
the question. I feel like I rambled.
I think you did answer it, because like that's the biggest way, right? It's
Yeah.
like when you move here, if you can support your parents here and there, if you can like
Hmm.
send things back home, support a
Hmm.
sibling, whatever. That's the biggest way that people offer support, and that's the biggest way support is requested for,
Yeah.
right? Like that's the biggest way where it's like, hey, I need, it's usually
Yeah.
money. Like that's just call it what it is. It's usually
Mhm.
money. Like they never ask. Like it's not like, come on. You see, I have memories of, I because growing up I had like uncles and aunties abroad, and when they'd call, my dad would be like, hey uncle, this person's on the phone, come and say hi.
Mhm.
And then I'm saying, uncle, good afternoon, how are you? How is abroad? How is America? How is,
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, and it's like, okay, Sarah, I'm visiting. What do you want me to bring for you? I'm like, I want laptop, I want a phone, I want palm top, I want clothes, I want, I used to list, oh God. And then as I list the list, I'm expecting them in my very small, tiny mind
Yeah.
of
Cause like,
like a 7, 8 year old, expecting them to bring it right back to me. And then by the
mhm.
time they'll come back and they didn't bring it, I always have an attitude. I'm like a little
Absolutely.
sport brat.
Absolutely.
And now I dare a cousin to ask me for a laptop. I will shoot you
No,
something from here. Like I will fire you catapult from this Canada that I'm in. You will see double. You know how much laptop is? You're
I
asking
feel
for
like
laptop.
that's all of us, like, like before immigrating. Like everyone
Yeah.
was like, yeah, like I have a relative. Like, so I want like Air Forces, I want Jordans,
Yeah.
like I
Yep.
want like an iPhone, the most recent one. Can I get some
Yeah.
like, And then I think it takes like going through that crucible of actually, traveling here, immigrating,
Yeah,
adjusting. You're like, wow, money isn't growing on trees here. This
it
is
is.
so crazy.
It is not, man. I remember like when my uncles are like visiting, or even if because of the time difference, and like you have to buy credit to make the call, blah blah blah, like they have to
Yeah,
arrange phone calls if they wanted to speak to the kids, right? So by the time they were arranged that, okay, at 7 o'clock your uncle is going to call, see, myself or my siblings will go and write our little list. I want dress, I want
yeah,
I want my list to have like 7 things on it, including phone, laptop, cloth, shoe, everything will be on that list like that. And as
mhm.
I'm talking, I'll be looking at the list like, I want phone, I want palm top. I don't know if you remember those little palm
Yeah,
tops
yeah,
that
yeah.
used to
No,
exist, but
absolutely,
I'll be like, I
absolutely.
want a palm top, I want this. Omo, I'm telling you, I look back at those memories and I'm like, oh, Sarah, you're lucky said I not give you slap. You are lucky that you did not
They were
receive.
so patient and gracious to let us rattle off this list
Like,
where they knew they weren't going to buy a single thing. They're like,
they,
yeah, palm top, yeah, laptop,
yes,
yeah,
yes.
shoes,
What else
okay.
do you
Oh
want?
my
What
God.
else? Yeah.
Yeah, they'll just let you say it, and they're
Is
like, you
that
know
all?
what? Yeah,
They'll say, is that all?
yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
yes, uncle, that's
I
all.
mean,
Okay.
I could go on. I have a second page. Love that.
And now I'm like, I say the first thing and I'm like, let me stop you there.
That's hilarious.
It is going to be candy from the dollar store, okay? And you will say thank you.
Oh my God. No, literally. You're like, listen,
But
I mean, my family doesn't like call me with like requests, which I'm like fortunate about. I don't know.
me
I feel
neither.
like people are very like, I don't know. My family is very much like, you know what you need to do. Like
Yeah,
in
yeah,
terms of
yeah, yeah,
just
yeah. It's
like,
an
they'll let
unspoken
me,
thing.
they're like, what do you think I need in such a
Yeah.
situation? Which is kind of like, a lot of pressure, but I mean, yeah. So, I mean, they will be getting candy for sure.
Yeah, yeah,
Not,
yeah.
not a pair. Yeah.
Not a no, like, and that was it. Usually they just bring candy and just be like, maybe a t-shirt, maybe
Or
like a
something.
top or a
Something
dress
like,
or
yeah.
something,
Mhm.
and that'll be it. And there was this uncle who would bring a lot of clothes for us, and that was like so freaking gracious of him.
Amazing.
Until one day Amrobaz harassed him in Lagos. He flew back the next day. He's like, no, nope. You spoke about this a bit earlier, and I wanted to kind of circle to it. You talked a little bit about how when you first moved here, like how your sense of you kind of took for granted the things that grounded you and gave you a sense of identity and a sense of like cultural grounding and stuff. Would you mind talking a little bit more? Again, I ask this question in every single episode. I'm asking it again. Would you mind talking about how moving to Canada at such a young age too, and living here all these
Mhm.
years, would you mind talking about how it has affected your sense of self and your cultural identity?
For sure, yeah. I think it's just especially in terms of just like taking for granted all the things that were part of my identity that like I kind of felt like I didn't have to fight to hold on to. When I was like growing up in Zimbabwe, like I feel like there was a gradual kind of like, you know, how would I even phrase it? Like trying to educate myself of like on like, stuff like Zimbabwean history. Like I feel like I started to be more engaged on like what, the history of actually like Zimbabwe and like the history of Shona people, the history of Ndebele people, and all the people groups that live there, and even just like the history of like Africa overall, because I think that was the first time in which like I was different from other people, not just in the like racial way, but like there was like range and like there was levels to blackness, right? There was like all these different kind of like ethnicities where it's kind of like at home, like everyone is just Shana or Ndebele, and it's kind of like practices are similar, everything like we don't function and live life at that level of just having to put our ethnic and cultural identity first. It's just kind of the norm. But I
Mm-hmm.
think my identity like evolved in that like I kind of started to become more like or try to, seek out an education about like myself and like where I'm from and like where other people are from and like what the similarities are and like what makes us, what brings us together, what makes us similar, what makes us different. Um, I would say definitely it strengthened my sense of self because I feel like there's so many things, especially living like in on on stolen land, like, and all these things that are just like, you start to kind of have a lot of like confronting conversations about like, this used to be like, the land of like milk and honey, but like how can it be if like this is literally someone's like we're having like a crisis of like women that are missing and are murdered, and like no one is like, we really not talking about that? That's crazy to me. That's crazy to think that like someone might be like, wow, this is the place to be, and someone else is like, yikes, this is
Mhm.
not the place to be. So I think for me there was a lot of like, especially like with my identity as an immigrant, right? Like just a lot of like confronting realizations about like what it meant to live in Canada and be, Canadian. So there were just a lot of like, I mean, I'm not Canadian yet, but I feel like I've lived here enough to kind of like sort of like nominally be Canadian, so to speak. But yeah, I think in one sense it made me really kind of like more curious and invested in investigating what it meant to be who I was. And through, making that a priority, I kind of felt like it made me stronger in who I was. So I could like, I don't know, you kind of do through the process of like, I don't know, I don't want to call it assimilation. I want to call it integration into society. Like you kind of have to develop whatever your exterior is. It's going to insulate you from all the stuff that's out there that doesn't want you here. Like especially referencing like racism and like microaggressions and like the history of this place that and the systems of this place that started with like, oppressing indigenous people, and like these systems we're all subject to, like,
Mhm.
land laws, labor laws, like, what I'm saying? Like that stuff
Mhm.
is not just affecting like indigenous people or like black people, like we're all subject to the laws of this land. So it's just kind of like like really kind of like, tapping into like the things that made me, who I was, and kind of like forming that, like, I wouldn't call it a shell, but like a kind of exterior that would insulate me from all the incessant like questionings of like, why are you here? Why do you think you should be here? Um,
Mhm.
and just knowing why I'm here and like, what my purpose is, and also just like what my purpose is in like my community. And just like being an active member of like society and community makes me feel like, okay, like, I feel like I'm a part of something, and I'm a part of like something that I'm passionate about, or like I'm building something. I'm part of something bigger than myself. And I think to me that's like a really important to me. So in that way, like throughout like my, I guess, like young adult coming of age, as well as like being an immigrant, as well as just like realizing that I was like black, which is
Yeah.
like,
It's a
which is,
realization
you
for
know what
real.
I'm saying? Because like when
Yeah.
you're home, you're just you, but like when you're here, you're black
Yeah.
and
Your
you're
black
African
loves.
and all other kinds of things.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think it did definitely, it was a journey. There was a lot of ups, a lot of downs, more downs than ups. But I think in that sense, I could really, with the community of like, other people who are also immigrants and also going through this like, I wouldn't call it like an identity crisis. I would call it like a discovery of identity. Like we all kind of have these conversations like incessantly surrounding what it means to be this thing and that thing, or what it means to be in this space. So I
Mhm.
think having that kind of community also just kind of like helped me kind of be like, oh, okay, like I'm not the only one like thinking about this stuff. So overall, I do believe it has made me like more, I don't know, like rooted in myself. So I feel stronger and I can stand on business in myself. So, I mean, I hope that answers your question, but I think that would be kind of my answer to it.
I think it does. I think it does. And I love your reframing of it's not an identity crisis, it's a discovery of identity. I think
Yeah.
that's such a very powerful phrase. And that's what it is.
Mhm.
Really, like it's not really a crisis, it's you figuring things out. You've been faced with new challenges and discoveries. Now it's about realigning with yourself and finding out how all those things
What
impact
that
who you
means.
are.
Mhm.
Yeah. And last question, how do you feel like you stay rooted in your Zimbabwean culture? Like, how would you say that now, today, in year 2024, you've been in Canada for such a long time already? How
Mhm.
would you say that, what steps would you say that you take to kind of like stay rooted in your roots
Mhm.
as an African from Zimbabwe, and
Mhm.
like how would you say you do that? What's that practice like?
Definitely like family. Family is the biggest point of contact that kind of keeps me Zimbabwean, quite frankly.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for family and like speaking the language, speaking Shona, also being
Mhm.
in community and like in connection with a lot of like Zimbabweans, which I'm so thankful for because
Mhm.
I was afraid that wouldn't be any here. So it's just like
Yeah.
really incredibly like cool to see other Zimbabweans like in, the city and like other people who are like, doing stuff and like people who are artists, people who are businessmen, people who are in music, people who are all over the place. I think for me, when I was in Zimbabwe, I had a specific idea of what it meant to be Zimbabwean, but now that I'm here and I'm seeing other Zimbabweans like in other spaces, I'm like, wow, like
Yeah.
I said, my sense of identity is expanding to be like,
Yes.
wow, like look at what people are doing with this superpower of being from this like very special place. And to
Yeah.
me, it just makes me feel so like connected to that place once more. So, I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, different practices, of course, like staying in contact with family, like trying to speak the language as much as I can. Even though when I go home, everyone is like, wow, your accent is, you know, can you still speak, But
Yeah.
I think it's just kind of like maintaining that contact with people, family over there and people over here as well. So yeah, I think that kind of like helps me keep grounded because like we're sharing this, I guess like a shared reality being immigrants in Zimbabwe and also just like that adds an extra layer of like, okay, like, I'm from a place, I belong in a place, we all belong in a
Mhm.
place.
100%, 100%. And I think that there are even more things like social media sometimes following like
Absolutely.
content like that is, humor from back home can also
Oh,
be a
oh my
thing as
God.
well.
The entire
Music.
Zimbabwean diaspora,
Yeah.
honestly, love them. Hugs and kisses to all of them. Love you all. Obviously, love to everyone on the continent, but I think that also that added aspect of like comedians, like in all these
Yeah.
other places where kind of like we are Zimbabweans, but we also have this added layer of like immigrants, and that just adds another kind of like link in the chain to kind of like
Yeah.
keep us like together and like hold us together. So
Yeah.
yeah, that also brings another aspect of like, wow, I didn't know Zimbabweans could, do stand up comedy,
Yeah.
like, or
Can
just
crack
like,
a joke.
and be successful, or like could be
Yes.
Broadway actors, actresses,
Yes. 100%.
you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Like artists, like
Yeah.
actual like musicians, and like do like
Hmm.
very important big things. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, I think it's just a whole community. It's not, it goes beyond like like obviously my
Yeah.
immediate family and like it goes beyond the country, like this entire globe of all of us across the world. Like I think,
Hmm.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
For me, all of that plus like the food, because food
Yes,
is
yes, yes, yes.
important. That
That is
is,
true.
yeah. So for
That is
me,
true.
all of that plus food, plus like the music, the dance, being in community with people. You mentioned language, which is so true. Staying grounded with family is
Mhm,
everything,
mhm.
Yeah, this was awesome, man. Thank you for sharing all that. We are reaching the end, and I want you to leave us with a word of wisdom. It can be a proverb from Zimbabwe, anything.
I don't know. Like I always reference this a lot. Like in my own personal life, like we have this kind of like I don't know if it's a proverb or like a saying, and in China, it goes like "kusatenda huroi," which means not being thankful or not thanking is witchcraft. So I think for me that
Okay.
is such a like in my ideology of who I am and how I move around in the world. I think no matter how tough, things are or how, incredibly dire things may seem or how hard life may be, there are
Mhm.
always going to be little, glimpses of light and sunshine and something we can have that like we can be thankful and grateful for. If someone, is kind to you, if someone does something nice to you, for you, even though you might not like them, you have to, give people their flowers, even though you
Yeah.
don't like it. But I think when someone does something good and commendable, and worthy of like applause, or like if whenever someone does something good, you have to really give them, we say kupa munhu sandu dzake, which means give them their like their accolades, their
Mhm.
flowers. When something good
Yeah.
has been done, like acknowledge it. Like when something
Yes.
beautiful and like good is happening, like you have to acknowledge it and give thanks for it. So that's one thing that I mean I would say for sure that I would leave
Yes.
people with. Yeah.
So that in short, an ingrate is a witch.
Listen, your words, not mine. I love the remix. personally. I mean, I mean, why are you not
But
grateful? What do you
yeah,
know that we don't? No, I'm
are
just
you practicing? Yeah,
yeah,
no.
yeah, if someone
100%.
does something
But
nice for you, like, why are you not saying thank you? Like, why are
yeah.
you? No, but I think it's always a beautiful way to like traverse through life with an attitude of gratitude and
Yeah.
like
Yes. That's exactly
and
what it
always just
is.
being thankful. And like, I think it just speaks to like even just like Zimbabweans and a lot of the ways that like there's not a lot of stuff like going great in the country itself. Like people are having a really hard time. I think there's just an ability to kind of like we call it kungwava ngwava, which is just to hustle, to move, to flow, which I'm sure a lot of, people on the continent do.
Yeah.
And they just kind of make it work. They make it do what it do. And I think it's just you
Mhm.
have to kind of maintain this like kind of like momentum to be able to move through, life when life is like that. So I yeah, love them. My
Yes.
biggest
Yeah.
inspiration.
Oh, that is awesome. Thank you so much, Nyasha. This has been an incredible episode already. Would you mind sharing your social media?
I do not mind. I mean,
Okay.
I do have a private account and I can't guarantee that I will accept all requests. But my
Fair.
handle is at Udadewetu, which is spelled Udadewethu.
What does it mean? Is that your name?
No, oh my God, no. My name is Nyasha, like, but Utadewetu means like sister in like Ndebele, and like I suppose like other like Nguni
Oh,
language like Zulu. So, yeah, 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 yeah.
Sister Nyasha.
Yes.
Yes, awesome. Thank you again, Nyasha. This has been an incredible episode with you.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I honestly like was like, I don't know why you want me on the show because I don't know what I have to contribute, but I really appreciate you, seeing something about me and my story that was worth sharing. And I hope, I don't know, like yeah, if you're in Calgary, if you see me on the street, if you heard the podcast, like if you want to chat, like hit me up. Like, my Instagram might be private, but when I'm in the public, I'm approachable. You know what I mean? So yeah,
Yeah.
come up to
Yeah.
me, say hello. Yeah. So thank you for having me. I'm really thankful.
Yeah, of course. And I think that your message of how, because I mean the world it's becoming more and more individualistic, right?
Mhm.
Where it's almost always like every man for himself, even within families, right? Unfortunately. And so I think that your story is beautiful in the way that your community came together for you. Like you put yourself out there and they're like, "Our daughter will enter abroad. We will
Amen.
make sure she gets there. She must enter that plane." And they came together and they made it happen. And I think that is just freaking, it's beautiful because, like in a world of social media where everyone is all about self promotion and self, I think that like reminding us that, we are a community, we are here for each other. Like no man is an island. I think that's incredibly valuable, you
For
know,
sure. For sure.
for us to remember. But
Course. If I can give one last shout out, I
oh
just want to
yes,
shout out like
please.
if I can, my mom. I want to shout out my mom because I think like in the overall like story of like me getting here, she's the one who really like put the pedal to the metal and like put her most faith in me. Of course, my family
Mhm.
was part of it, but like she really believed in me in a way that like even though she might not express it or like say it, and she sometimes her like doubts might be coming off a little bit like attacks, questions sometimes, but I think at the end of the day, she really, I really appreciate her for believing in me and trusting that I would come here and like do what I needed to do. So shout out to my mom, love her so much. Mwah. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you for having
Shout out, shout out, shout out, shout out to Mama Nyasha. Nyasha
me.
is a good girl. She did not join
I
bad
tried.
gang.
No,
She's
really,
she's
please.
yeah.
When this comes out, I'm gonna take this clip and be like, "You see what I've done? Like, I'm not just out here doing whatever.
Yeah,
People
I know.
respect me. I'm an
Yes,
adult. I've done things. Thank you so much.
yes, yes. Shout out to Mama Nyasha.
Thank you so
Again, once more, thank you, Nyasha, for coming on the show. And to our listeners, thank you for sticking through with us. We'll see you on the next episode. Bye.
much. Bye.